known, and we have to kind of cover them. Let's actually now talk about how this threat modeling what is the process and how exactly we can achieve this. So I have covered two types. One is a very basic type of process that can be applied for any single application development or any application, mobile application that you develop. It's a very basic way of doing the threat modeling. And there is another one which is like when you are actually implementing a roadmap for or multiple applications for enterprise, or you are actually building a mobile number of mobile applications or mobile gateway for enterprise. We should consider that. So a very basic process. Just focus on 4 areas: resource, threat, vulnerability, and mitigations. So resource, what are you trying to protect? That's the first question you ask yourself in the application. Whenever you are implementing the use case, just ask this question to yourselves. And what you are afraid of happening. These two questions will at least give you the the impact analysis or at least the threat analysis that that can happen to the business and application. How can the threat occur is something you should also focus on. Then once you have these two areas clear, you can focus on how it can happen and what can reduce this risk, and that will give you the probability of how likely is the threat given the control. And this basically, by understanding these 4 pieces of information, you can at least write your code or plan your code in a way that it can secure your application. Again, this is very basic way of doing it. If you are developing a single application, this can definitely help developers and leads. There is another way of threat modeling. This is called PASTA. PASTA is process for attack simulation and threat analysis. Let me give you a little bit background on PASTA. PASTA is basically is not actually defined for the mobile applications, but it is a 7-step process and applicable to the most application development. It's not just for the web applications. You can apply this process to any application development. So that is the best way, and that is the way that is the reason why we want to cover today this. Okay, the business objectives with technical requirements. It aligns your business objectives. There are other threat modeling, like Microsoft also has a threat modeling process. It is not touching the business objectives. It is only focusing on the technical requirements. It also includes compliance requirements and business impact analysis. So this is compliance is, as I said earlier, compliances are now actually imposed upon on the mobile application development also. So we should cover them when we are actually threat modeling the entire application. Dynamic approach to threat management. This is another area that it covers. So these are the 7 steps of PASTA, and it starts with define objective, define technical scope. It also covers this technical scope, application decomposition, threat analysis, weakness analysis, attack modeling, and risk and impact analysis. So after each and every stage, you have some deliverables, and those meaningful deliverables are useful to various stakeholders of the project. So let's take one by one. The stage 1 is define the objectives. Define your business objectives, define the security requirement, define compliance requirements, and perform a preliminary business impact analysis. These are the 4 steps that we do. Of course, to do this, we need business requirement and functional requirement document, security information, basically a security policy information, regulatory compliances that are applied to the particular vertical, security guidelines and standards, and data classification. The outcome, you have clear list of business objectives, you have clear list of application functionalities, you have a list of definitions of the application security, compliance requirement and business impact report. So moving on to next, define the technical scope. Once we have defined the business scope, we now have to focus on defining the technical scope, which says, identify application boundaries, identify application dependencies from the device environment. These are the what all areas we have to identify on the environment, what all device environment we are dependent on. And in mobile world we are dealing with 4 or 5 different platforms, and there we have to be very careful in identifying those areas and risk in those areas. Identify app dependencies from server infrastructure. No enterprise applications can be standalone on the mobile, so we have to identify those areas. And of course, identify dependencies from the third-party libraries. We have to use one or the other mobile application development SDKs apart from the native SDKs. So those are the 4 areas we need to focus on. So basically this will allow us to capture the boundaries of technical environment. Step 3 is application decomposition. Basically here we are identifying the use cases and defining the app entry points and boundaries. So this here we come up with the flow diagrams, trust boundaries. We come up with we identify the users, actors, their roles and permissions. We identify data, server calls, native device access, identify data points, and trust levels. So these are the areas that we focus on. Threat analysis, it gives you the attack scenarios, and the basically you analyze the attack scenarios, analyze the fraud cases. And to analyze the fraud cases, you definitely need a good vertical knowledge and see how exactly what has happened in past for such kind of scenarios. So that gives you a better visibility on how exactly you can implement your own use cases, right? So that's something that you need to do. Of course, you need to analyze your logs, security events, and then correlate all these incidents and fraud with the threat intelligence. So that gives you a clear attack scenarios analysis. Moving on to next is weakness analysis, vulnerability analysis, and these actually map all the vulnerabilities with with the threats that we have identified in our earlier stages. So it correlates all your vulnerabilities to the application. You can map threat with vulnerabilities, and basically it will give you a clear picture of how exactly a threat can happen, and how exactly it will be mapped with the use cases. So this is another exercise, a very good exercise. I have actually modified a little bit of process to this is the process that we use at InfoStretch for any mobile application. Actual process is not focusing on the mobile applications. We have some of them we have modified because the process is open enough to so that we can modify. So some of them here you see the mobile applications, wherever we have mentioned mobile applications, it's actually modified version of this process that we are using here. The attack modeling, of course, it gives you the attack surfaces. As we have discussed, there are various surfaces, device attack trees. So it can identify the application attack surface, which surface it will these kind of threats can occur. So that's the focus on at stage 6. And risk and impact analysis is something that will be actually qualify and quantify the business impact. It gives you it will identify gaps in the security controls, calculate the residual risks, and identify risk mitigation strategy. So output here will be application risk profile. You will know end to end for a particular application, for a particular use cases, what will be the risk profile. You can actually quantify and qualify the risks. You can actually map threat, attacks, vulnerabilities, and business impact, and you have at least a mitigation strategy available at the end of the stage 7, and this will be really helpful to business managers who can determine which business objective have impact on security. So this is for business managers. Architects will understand the implications of threats and attacks, so that they can actually design the entire application that has counter measures and protect the data assets. Developers will be it will help developers to actually understand which components when they are developed are vulnerable, and how they can be exposed to attack. So this will help developers. Testers can rely on, and they can actually write the abuse cases and create the positive and negative test scenarios for this. So this will be helpful to testers. Project managers, they can manage the security defects. At least they are aware that what are the security, what could go wrong in the application, and how exactly they can prioritize their tasks. CISOs, basically they'll know that they'll be informed about the risk management decisions. As I mentioned earlier, this process is only helpful when enterprises want to develop their application and multiple applications for multiple functionalities. This may not be useful just for one HR application or one consumer application. Some of the